Okay.
Yeah, revolutionary greetings, comrades. Welcome to Concerns in Study Group. Today we are actually discussing the agricultural sector for Africa. As you know, our key role and theme is actually we discuss matters of liberation, unification, and development of Africa. And as I've said today, we want to look at the agriculture of the African continent. We are going to have an open conversation, which is an open discussion today, where we are going to look at various issues pertaining agriculture of Africa, where we are, the challenges you are facing currently as a continent, our food basket, ability for us to feed ourselves, and the Western influence or control about our agriculture. And what do we need to do in order to be liberated or to liberate our agricultural sector and also to be independent in terms of our food production? So we are not actually having a special speaker for this, but I believe matter of agriculture and food is special to all of us. And therefore, we will be having an open conversation for members to actually share their thinking in regards to the direction of the continent in regards to agriculture, where we are, the challenges and everything else. So welcome once again, comments. Not a special discussion, but we have actually invited two groups that deal with the agriculture in Kenya. There's one group called Seed Africa that are trying to have an initiative to protect indigenous seeds so that we don't lose them in the Middle East or in the current situation whereby we have a GM seeds coming in. There's also a group led by Ras Fala called African Food, those who are actually also promoting organic agriculture, organic farming. So those are the two groups that we have invited, and we hope some of their members or one of their members will be joining to also share with us their thinking in regards to this. But as a startup, we will just go ahead directly. We have actually heard of informations sometimes back, like for example, Kenya, that you were to depend on wheat from, where was it? Ukraine. Probably, I think it was Ukraine that was actually feeding Kenya with the wheat. And we are also getting some other concern that there are some other, of course, maize production coming from Russia in other parts, helping us with cereals and food to feed the continent. Apart from this, we've also been having issues of the GM food and of course, a discussion in the continent on whether do you have to adapt these genetically modified seeds. And you know the push that is being done by Monsanto's and actually Bill Gates in line with this. And we also know that there are countries that have actually ratified or accepted the GM seeds. Others are drafting the bill. There are so many bills that have come up in Kenya. I think, Brother Carrington, if you will be able to remember some of them, that are actually even now making it illegal for you to share seeds. If you have to share some of your seed with a neighbor, it's impossible. Like what we were doing before in our traditional days, that you could actually share some of the seed with your neighbor during the plantation. And now we used to preserve our seeds, especially maize seeds for the next harvest or the next actual plantation. These are some of the bills that are coming actually to curtail our agricultural sector. And therefore, we need to know whether also there's any plan with either AU or any continent in regards. I know AU has a program on agricultural sector. Probably I'll look into that and also share what they are thinking in line with this. But generally, this is a conversation we want to have. What do we need to do? What must be done as Pan-Africans in regards to our agriculture and our food basket as a people? So this is an open conversation, as I've said, and we'll be looking forward to those other groupings joining us. So any member who want to start us off this conversation, just feel free to have your turn and share your thinking in regards to those areas that I've mentioned and what do you think must be done for us as a continent moving forward. Thank you once again and feel most welcome, Brother Windog, Sister Agnes, Sister Chisoma, and Sister Shaza, and Brother Carrington as well, and Brother Kwame. Feel most welcome. Yeah, let's start the conversation. Share your thinking with us. Anybody who is ready to go? Yes, Sir Windog, please go ahead. Start us off.
Yes, greetings to everybody. Mine is just a question as to what is the state? Do we have an idea as to how many African countries has ratified that Bill Gates bill of GMOs and GMCs? And can we measure the speed at which it is progressing, so to say, and how can we curtail that? That those who have ratified for now has ratified, but those who are on their way to ratify, how would we curtail? What measures will we put in place to try and stop the pace at which they would?
Thank you for that question. Brother Carrington, if you are able, please help us look for that. The data for those countries that have actually ratified the GM bill and how many are they so far? Those who are ratifying the GMO bill and the need for GMO. Welcome, Sister Rose Angel. Feel free to join us in this conversation. Brother Carrington?
Yes, I'm checking right now. I'll get back to you.
Thank you very much. Any other member want to go in to this conversation? As I've said, we are discussing about the agriculture of the continent, our production ability, our indigenous seeds, the GM challenge, and our ability to feed ourselves as well, and maybe organic farming as well. So anybody want to share with us what they think must be done or what they think in line with this, please feel free to go ahead. Sister
I
Chisomo?
have a I have a question. What is the bill about? If you can explain to us a bit. Hello, can you hear
There
me?
are so many bills that have been passed in Kenya in line with agriculture,
Yes.
but there's one specific bill on seed.
Yes.
And I think they're called seed patterning. And it discusses about it's actually make it illegal for a farmer to share seed with another farmer without the approval from the agricultural sector. I'm also looking at that bill and I'll share with you. It's a specific bill that denies farmers to share seeds, what's called seed sharing.
Okay.
Yes, Sister Chisomo? Okay. Brother Carrington?
Yes, thank you very much, brothers and sisters. It is true. Kenya has around 3 or 4 bills. I have forgotten their details because we were discussing them last year in our respective communities about on agriculture. Brother Pigeon, please feel free to correct me in case I get something wrong because it has been a while since I've been in the country. But the first one is the GMO bill, right? The idea behind the GMO bill is to make it legal, to make it acceptable, to sell GMO produced foods in the country. That's just the first step. The second in the GMO bill is to make it legal to produce using GMO seeds in the country. The theoretical reason for this is drought adaptability, for example. There are specific maize strains in the country which are thought to function better in more dry regions of the country. As some of you may know, 70-80% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid. So you're left with maybe 20% for agricultural produce. So the theoretical reason for this is to make this 20% as agriculturally productive as possible and use some of the remaining 10-20% of the arid and semi-arid land. Third is a third bill that is of interest. Brother Pigeon has talked about it. He will give details as we go on. Is to do with seed sharing facilities. So the rationale for this, actually that bill is more stringent than that. It's not just about seed sharing between farmers, which is proscribed. The bill also proscribes the storing of seeds, planting seeds from one season to the next. So the government, acting in collaboration and in proxy with international agricultural companies, wants to control the productivity of the land throughout Kenya. Again, they are good in principle reasons for this. The idea is to make sure that year by year you have adaptable seeds and updatable seeds sort of that will respond better to the environment and to climate change. Third is not really a bill, but a program which has to do with livestock. Um, Elder Joshua Maponga is in Kenya, I believe, if he has not left Kenya already, but he is in Kenya. He has engaged the most with this bill. This program by the government involves the vaccination of cows for reasons farmers do not understand very, very well. Against diseases, farmers do not understand very, very well. This has received the most resistance from farmers. In fact, only a very small number, I won't count above 100 cows have been vaccinated. Now, my comments as I go to look up more information, especially to do with the rate of GMO adaptation in the continent, my comments are, my position is that it is not a bad thing in of itself that we are using science and technology to improve agricultural yield, right? Natural maize in the country and in the continent and in South America especially was very low yield. The maize cobs were very small, and generation by generation, our ancestors selected maize strains, maize species that have bigger cobs and bigger seeds. And slowly by slowly, they experimented with this maize, and the result is this maize that we can see, right? So our agricultural ancestors were not just planting things the way the ancestors had been planting for thousands of years. They were continuously experimenting so that they can get better yield for their crop, right? And they experimented with the rotational agriculture. They did a lot of experiments. Our ancestors were scientists. We like saying that our ancestors were kings, but they were also scientists and agriculturalists. The problem comes in when we accept uh, experiments to be done on African agriculture by American scientists, American companies, and American billionaires. That is a problem. It means we are losing control of our agricultural technology, and that becomes a problem. But maybe this can go into the discussions. Thank you very much. Let me look for a little bit more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Carrington. In fact, I've checked the bill. The seed sharing bill is actually said in Kenya that seed sharing is illegal in Kenya under the Seeds and Plants Variety Act of 2012, which prohibit the exchange of uncertified and unregistered seeds, which means then farmers have to register the seeds or certify them. The law can result into imprisonment of up to 2 years, a fine of up to 1 million or both. They say the seed sharing is banned because to regulate seed industry and to protect intellectual property rights. That's what they're arguing. And the bill is controversial because farmers argue that the law gives multinational seed companies power to control biological resources. It has also led to decreased food production by smallholders farmers and has forced farmers into overdependence on seed companies for seed supply, and is stifle agricultural innovation, threaten food security, and undermine the right of small-scale farmers. So the alternatives of seed sharing then is actually provided like seed banks, seed fairs, seed exchange, and both of the alternatives. Now, with the ban, the farmers have actually filed a lawsuit against the act, and the Law Society of Kenya has actually extended their support to help in this fight. This is just one of the way on how our agriculture is actually being undermined. I know Brother Carrington has talked of the issues of GM food. Having sat on some of the conference by the Biosafety Authority, saying that, of course, GM foods, they were trying to say that when the GM foods get into markets and into the stores in Africa, they'll be labeled properly for farmers or individual citizens to choose. That you can either buy a GM or you don't buy a GM. That's what they say is out there in the developed countries. But again, the production of GM food will be a bit cheaper. Therefore, the cost of those GM products at the end cost in the markets or supermarkets will be lower. But the fact that majority of Africans are then poor, sometimes they don't care about the danger or the harm of the food they are consuming, but rather they are guided by their prices. Which means then, if you have a GM product in the supermarket that is cheaper versus the organic one, most of farmers from the African continent will choose to buy the cheaper one, irrespective of the harm they have. So claiming that will give a choice that it is either GM or not GM label for farmers to choose is in one way trying to evade the reality and the problem. But another thing, as Brother Carrington is asking, is why do they push GM foods to the continent currently? But the continent has the ability to produce still arid land, enough rainfall that can then help or even boost with irrigations. Why do it now? So this is part of the conversation we are having to members who have joined us as we look at the agricultural sector of the continent in terms of the food safety and food security and the liberalization of the continent from depending on food from outside the continent and the true independence of people to practice their organic food farming and their seed products. And also whether you think that actually the new technologies like GM food and anything that's coming in the market is actually necessary or should be invited or should be welcome. And the key thing is, what do you think we should do as Africans? Back to you, Sister Chisomo first, and then Sir Windhoek. So feel most welcome, members of join us, and feel free to raise your hand in order for you to contribute to this conversation. Sister Chisomo?
Oh, hello. Yes, no, I just went into searching as well, and I'm seeing that Kenya has an act from 2012. That's a long time ago. And it says that the reason why you're doing that is to have high quality seed and to combat the distribution of counterfeit seeds. So, and then it says that in 2025, there's been a legal challenge in courts. Is that right? A legal
Yes,
challenge
that's right.
in courts advocating to share indigenous seeds, which are often resilient to local climate conditions. And then it lists other countries like Malaysia, United States. I think Malawi is also listed. So what I noticed in Malawi, I'm glad we've got this session for some of us to understand what's going on. When I went to Malawi, I noticed that when you're buying things from the market, they would say to you, do you want hybrid or do you want local? Which means they understand that one is, I think you've mentioned that it has to be labeled and whatnot. So maybe that's what's going on in Malawi, because they will ask you, even in the local markets, they will ask you, do you want hybrid or do you want local? So if you don't understand the difference, and it has different prices, I'm not quite sure if the local one is cheaper than the hybrid. I can't remember. But here in the UK, the organic stuff, any organic stuff is very expensive. So people just tend to go for the other. Well, they don't say what the other one is. The GMO one, I suppose. But yeah, but I've noticed also, so what then happens is the government distributes fertilizer, the seed, a bag of seed of maize, and I think a bag of maize that people have to use for ugali. And then you wonder why people have, because before people would store seed for the following year, and they would build these little storage stuff where they kept all the dry maize. You don't see them anymore. And literally people waiting for the government to bring seed or they want to grow their maize. Not that they're being forced, but I think it's because I don't know if it's free or whether they buy it cheap. But now they're campaigning, oh, the maize is now expensive, this is expensive, what are we going to eat? And you're thinking, who is stopping you from storing maize? They believe that that one grows better. But then it's tasteless and it's got all sorts of stuff that's causing all sorts of diseases. And now, when they grow it, it's not yielding anything. It's not growing, so they're told to put another fertilizer for growing, another fertilizer for weeds, another fertilizer for the cob when it... And you just wonder what's going on. So it's too much chemicals at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Chisomo. Sir Windhoek?
Thank you. As to just maybe to start with a question, just in a
Sir
nutshell.
Windhoek?
Yes. Can you
Please
hear
also
me?
feel free to share with us what's going on in Namibia in regards to this, what you are saying, whether it's also affecting people there or was also the situation there in terms of the agriculture. Does Namibia feed itself, or does it also depend on some support from maybe outside the Africa in terms of import of food in the continent and in regards to GMO and those other practices?
It's a disease all over Africa. We have all become lame. We don't want to seriously work. We are just dependent on government. If government does not bring the seeds, then everybody will fold their hands and let us go hungry because government did not bring the seeds.
Mm, very sad.
Very sad, yes, indeed. And so it's a situation that really needs a rescue at the earliest. Maybe to start with a question in a nutshell, what are the dangers of GMOs? Just in a nutshell. And as to what can be done in the future, is maybe to create an African research center where we can analyze the seeds and the plants that we already have in order to raise yield and produce. If we have a research center already, agricultural research center for Africa, then it's kudos. But maybe if we don't have, that's the direction we have to move in. Number two, as to what can be done, is like schools have got wasted resources, and you will find many schools they don't have even a small garden just for cabbage and carrots. Maybe it should become law somewhere, somehow, that every school, primary, secondary, or tertiary, should have agriculture as a priority. And if, for instance, tertiary institutions are forced to take agriculture as compulsory, they will in the end also support and help in the research. So if we can cultivate that culture of producing for ourselves at a very early age, I think in the end we will do away with these GMOs, because then agriculture will really be inculcated in our genes and in our blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Windhoek. You've reminded me of a few things. One, of course, Kenya has what we call KALRO, which is Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization. We deal with the research in agriculture. We also have, I think, KIRDI, we have KEMRI for all those other research. But second thing, I remember there's something that Samia Suluhu did in Tanzania. I think something that we need to follow up and get updates. Samia Suluhu decided, I think, to give, I think, 10 acre or 1 acre to over thousands or 100,000 youths in Tanzania. Somebody can verify this, so that they could practice agriculture and plant, so that Tanzania can then be self-sufficient in terms of food. But many of us, is another question we need to ask ourselves is, are we really embracing agriculture? Because as technology and science is coming in, many people are forgetting about agriculture. Many people are either in the cities waiting to go buy foods in the shelves. You buy foods that you don't know how many people are now moving to agriculture. Agriculture is no longer becoming more lucrative to many of Africans. Having sit, sometimes I have experience to sit in some of the committees that deal with the agriculture, especially export from Kenya to outside. And I realized that one is that currently most of the farmers in my country are actually producing or farming or going to agricultural ventures that have export potential. So people are going to maybe plant mango so that they can export to China or the EU. They're going to plant avocado. They're going to plant, they call it French beans, but it's beans from Africa. Now people are going to what you call dragonfly, fruit fly. People are going to things like spices. But when you get the intention of these people is that they are farming so that they can export and get a lot of money out of it. And there's less regulation in regards to the standard of food that then remains in the continent or in the country. For example, the leftover mango that do not qualify for export market will then go to the local market. And there are a lot of funding that goes in that way in terms of capacity building, especially there's a program that was being funded by USAID, which is now stopped. There's another fund that is now coming in from EU, which is called EU Green Deal. Does affect a lot of things. For example, now we have issues with the coffee export. And EU is saying that if you have to export a coffee, we have to trace your farm where it is. But the question is again, are we really doing agriculture for the purpose of feeding the rest of the world in export? Or are we doing venturing in basic agriculture food for the purpose to feed our people and ourselves? And again, there are issues of export. Of course, there are imports that come in from continent, which is not a big issue. For example, Kenya depended some times back majorly on the milk from Uganda. Kenya depends sometimes from the tomatoes from Tanzania. And sometimes they also depends on onion sometimes from Tanzania. There are also a lot of wheat that is coming from Ethiopia. Ethiopia is doing well in terms of wheat. And Kenya also depends sometimes eggs from Uganda. But also Kenya is giving some in regards to either tea. Kenya is giving tea as a leading tea producer. And Kenya is doing a lot in terms of now dairy and other things. But we still have to get ourselves with either fish coming from China to the continent here for sale. We are getting other products that are basic in terms of food that's coming out of the continent to the continent. So that is the bigger question here. Beyond this, there are people who are also preferring the GM. And I remember one of the rules that were put on the GM is that if you're doing a GM food or you're planting GM maize or GM products, there's a possibility of cross-pollination, especially when plants are reaching that level of maturity. And when your neighbor plants GM, then it means that it's possible that your organic product be affected by pollination. So even if you planted organic, during the cross-pollination, it's possible to end up with some GM element in your produce. And again, then GM will require at least a big ranch of farms, which some of us do not have that individual big ranches of farms. So you'll end up with GM at the end of the day. So the question is again, people have been asking, and I remember one day the president of Kenya asked citizens that people are talking ill about GM products. Have you ever seen me growing stressed because I took a GM food? And that was his defense towards GM products in the country. But I remember the recent minister from agriculture who was appointed recently, actually rejected totally the issues of GM and GM food in this country, said that you're not going to import them. But this is also contrary opinions as many other opinions are coming in. So the question is then, where are we heading as a continent and what must be done as Africans, irrespective from your country where you are? And please share with us what's going on in your country, in your individual country. I know General Anunnaki is joining us from the Food Agriculture Initiative where they're doing organic agriculture. And General Anunnaki will share with us what project they're doing also in organic agriculture. There are people who are doing seed bank, and I don't know if some of them have joined us here from the organization that deals with seed bank, protecting seed or indigenous seeds. And there are also people who are now starting encouraging what you call garden farming. So all this is what you want to hear actually with the state of Africa in regards to the food, the ability of Africa to feed itself, the dependence from the West or the East, and the independence and liberalization of African agriculture, especially out of GM and the rest. Let me give it to Brother Joseph Anthony. And anybody want to speak, please feel free to raise your hand. Joseph, please share with us what's going on in the Caribbean, especially in the Grenada as well.
Hello, yeah. Good
Sawindo,
afternoon.
did you want to
Good
say something
evening.
before?
Good evening. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me?
Joseph, go ahead. Sawindo will come. Yes, Joseph, go ahead.
Unfortunately, I'll be quick because I have to be ready. I have to be somewhere in less than an hour time. So I cannot stay. But the topic of GMO is very dear to me because as part of an international environmental organization, I was part of struggles as way back as in the late 90s, early 2000 against GMO, basically coming into the Caribbean. But also it was linked to Latin America and Europe and also Africa. Let me say this. At that time, the New York Times had said that there was a Nigerian, not too sure whether the Minister of Education or a Nigerian Minister of Agriculture was actually bribed by those GMO companies. I think it was Monsanto to go and promote GMO. I personally had a situation in Grenada where there's this official from the Ministry of Agriculture who went on a seminar, and he came as a disciple, and we had to shoot him down, not physically. We had to really take him down. I mean, take him down from promoting that. Of course, the ministry quickly kind of cover him up and so on. But we have to understand the whole thing of GMO in the context of control, hegemony. The same companies that are promoting GMOs are the same companies that own all the the petrochemicals, who owns the fertilizers and so on, and also who part of the military. I mean, they have control in every area. So it's a matter if, as a former Chilean foreign minister said years ago, he who controls your food, he who feeds you controls you. And more, we have been, I mean, as people in the South, not just in Africa, but people in the South, and also people in the diaspora in the North, they are being limited in the choice of food. In the United States, for instance, there's something called food apartheid, where African Americans and people of color cannot eat the food that are healthy to them. They have to eat food that are basically junk. So this is something that I'm glad that we are raising that other issue and making it something that we should pay attention to. I would say, though, that there are some places in the world or some effort in the world where the science of biotechnology has been used, but not for profit, like in Cuba. And we could find out things from Cubans what they're doing in the agriculture, which unfortunately right now, the Cuba is being strangled to death right now as I speak by all the sanctions and so on are being imposed, and then further sanctions are being imposed on them, including people they send out, I mean, the medical people they send around the world countries are being penalized for that now, under the new American regime. But I will tell you one other thing you have to be careful. You have to be, look out for when there's disaster. This is what they did in Grenada when we had the Hurricane Ivan. The folks came in under the disguise of aid and distributed plants. I mean, seeds and all of that. By that time, it was too late to stop. We couldn't stop it at the time because, I mean, after disaster, people lose their house, they lose their livelihood and so on, and people were eager to get back on their feet. But this is one of the areas, and I think something like that similar to happen where the U.S. had decided not to give either Malawi or one of the Mozambique, one of those countries after a disaster, because they said no, we don't want GMO grain or something like that. So there is that thing. The other thing you need to, there's so much I could say about it. The other thing about it, you need to know the struggle that the Europeans did within the European Union. They struggled, and I was part of that, to have what they call labeling at the time. To have, because from the American point of view, they didn't want people to know what's in the food, because most of the American food, almost every related to grain and so on in America, in the United States, GMO based or GMO infected. But what the European folks, what the European people were saying at the time, those who were struggling, at least let us know what we are buying. And they were saying no. In fact, later on, they get the American get the European Union to compromise on that after years of struggle. And I suppose they will do the same thing out of there, the same thing with Africa. India also. It has been proven that GMO does not improve yield. Whether it's cotton seed in East Africa or in India, it does not. We must not buy into that. And then what about food sovereignty? We are losing the capacity to control the food that we need to eat. And I'll end here because I know I can't speak for the whole time, but it will. I would like to come back when I have more time.
Dr. Joseph.
Yeah.
Before you end, I'm asking one question. Is the people of Grenada are capable of feeding themselves, or is the government of Grenada still importing food to feed the people of Grenada? And the Grenada people, are they still planting their organic seeds and practicing organic food, or they are also influenced by this GM whatever and these other sovereignties from out there trying to interfere with the agricultural sector?
Good question. Good question, Brother Pigeon. The thing about it is that there was a time when we fed ourselves. We are not able to feed ourselves right now. And somebody said earlier, and I think you or the speaker before you said that even when they're talking about food, about assisting farmers and so on, it is not for food production for us. It's food for production externally for the European Union, for the United States. Even when we deal with fish, the fish has to be done in a certain quality and so on. And everything is for like the superior people of the world. I mean, God forbid, I mean, I don't really mean it per se, but I mean, that's how it come across. But let me tell you also what would happen at the invasion. After the invasion of Grenada in 1983, the Americans sent a delegation and they did something similar to in Haiti, why Haiti have difficulty with feeding themselves. No. But in Grenada, they sent a delegation for, it wasn't to do so much with GMO at the time, but they sent a delegation from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Commerce, and both departments, to convince the people in Ministry of Agriculture to abandon agriculture altogether because they said in terms of production, in terms of cost for producing stuff. And there's something in economics which not come in my head right now. I mean, the volume, the amount you could produce at, the cost and that kind of thing. There's a term in economics, it's not coming in my mind now. The fact, I mean, the cost of whatever it is. But they told the folks, please abandon this because you could get things cheaper from us. And so more and more we have moved to importing container of this and container of that. We import even egg. I heard the president of Guyana was lamenting last week at during the CARICOM summit that we have a shortfall in egg because we're not getting, because of all the problem in the world, we're not getting, meaning them, I don't know if he meant CARICOM or Guyana, that there was a 20% shortage of egg. Just imagine. Eggs. You can't produce eggs for yourself. You need eggs.
Okay, thank you, Elder
So
Joseph. If you
I
find
hope
time,
we
please.
could come back and maybe some other folks from the Caribbean could come back and we could talk about it. Unfortunately, my mind is on something else. I committed to something else, which I'm supposed to be in less than an hour.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elder Joseph. So far we've heard from Malawi, we've heard from our
Brother
brothers in Namibia.
Brother Pigeon.
Yeah.
Let me finally say, we need to learn from Ethiopia. Ethiopia have the
I've mentioned
oldest seed
Ethiopia.
bank, oldest seed bank in the world. I'm told it's even thousands of years they have maintained seed. I don't know
Okay,
the type of war and so on, whatever happened to that arrangement, but we need to find out from them and learn how they did it. And also, we need to understand that even in the face of poverty, of hunger, what had happened, like during the Ogaden famine, the famine when these folks went and did the song about We Are the World, what was happening at the time? You had one part of Ethiopia was in drought and in famine, and another part was producing some of the best beef for Europe, for the European Union. So they were exporting the beef to European Union at the same time. It's the same way the fish from Senegal, or I think Senegal in particular, from Ivory Coast, somewhere there, it's being poached by the European Union, by shipped from the European Union right now, and affecting, fishermen in the localities. We need to be aware of all of those things. So thanks.
Thank you, Elder Joseph. Of course, I mentioned a bit of Ethiopia, and I hope we'll get people to share from Ethiopia. So as I was saying, we've heard from Malawi, from Kenya, from Namibia. We've gone to Grenada, and the story is almost the same. So let me get to Sister Chisom again from Malawi to finish on what she's saying. Then I'll get to Sister Halima. Then we'll go to South Africa to Ras Pala. The hope is here, General Nunaki. in what's going on in South Africa in regards to food also, and other comrades from South Africa, and also Raspal will share with us what is the organization also doing in regards to also to protect indigenous food. So, Sister Chisomo?
Yes, I think in my presentation I didn't mention maybe what we should do about it. Again, when I went, why is it echoing? Is it me?
No,
Is
just
it me?
proceed.
Anyway, yeah. So when I went to Malawi, I actually went on a volunteering program with some volunteering organization in Switzerland, but it takes you to all sorts of different countries in the world. So I chose to go to Malawi anyway, whereby I was at an institution that does permaculture. So permaculture is like about creating food forests. So instead of growing, having a garden of maize only or whatever, you just mix everything, whether it's trees, whether it's maize, tomatoes. And so in that way, you have food throughout the year. And because you're growing things together, for whatever reason, the plant seems to feed on each other and supporting each other. Like they were saying that in permaculture, it's about supporting, not competition. So these plants don't actually because sometimes you think by mixing maybe the other one won't grow. But in terms of weather conditions and drought and things like that, at least you're left with something. Because some of the plants will go throughout the year. Some of the plants can withstand the bad weathers. And I think that was a brilliant idea. And also I have an agriculture group on Facebook. So different people in Malawi and now people from elsewhere post. I find that a lot of people are making their own fertilizer. Some of them it's liquid fertilizer. It looks chemically, but they claim that they're making. So it's in bottles, in jars, in whatever. But some it's just all this stuff about urine and about compost from outside toilets and things like that. Different types of manure, making manure helps. So although all these things are there, they are all over social media and they are we know the people practicing these, because a lot of people are now providing training. In fact, there's a guy in Malawi who just deals with permaculture, and people are flying from all over, people from elsewhere, from the West, going to learn from him, but the government will not mention it. The government will not mention permaculture. They will not. I think another colleague mentioned that people don't even grow any vegetables around their house, and that's the situation in Malawi. They will cry hunger, 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 and they're sitting on huge land that's growing nothing. There's another district where they're telling us that, oh, these people are eating, I don't know what the English language is for these things. But anyway, there's another tribe that goes into the river to go and collect something in there, some plants that they then come and eat. And it's like, oh, this government, people are eating this zikau, they call it zikau. They're eating zikau because there's no food. And I'm thinking, you've just been in water. Why didn't you bring the water to your house to water your own vegetables and your own food? And do you see what I mean? Irrigation. Every village has a well where they draw the water to go and cook, to bath. Some people have rivers. I know where I come from, there's a huge river. Nobody uses it to water anything around the house. They will wait for that maize from the government. They will wait for that. Oh, we are hungry, we're hungry. Recently, they've been receiving the vice president, I don't know where he gets donation of this meal for making ugali. It's a small bag, 10 kgs, so he goes handing them out. But I'm thinking, they've got the ugali. Where is the vegetable? How are they going to find the vegetable to even eat the ugali with? It's so sad. So the government does not promote or teach people what to do, and the people will only listen to the government. And here we are. It's hunger, hunger. Oh, Malawi, there's hunger in Malawi. Oh, the mean is there is no maize because a Malawian will not eat potato, will not eat cassava, will not eat rice, will not eat as food as it's like, oh, we're now living on potatoes because there is no maize meal. Honestly. So anyway, some of these things are self-inflicted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Chisomo. Let's get to Sister Helima. Welcome, Sister Helima.
Hello. Hello. Good evening, all.
Good evening, sister.
I just wanted to also reiterate a bit on what was discussed, like how my sister just finished talking about permaculture. We also have something like that in the past. If you can remember, our parents, no matter the amount of land that you have, just the little land in front of your house, our parents plant like 3 crops together. That's maize, beans, and I think which other one? There's maize, there's beans, or with groundnut, and then there's also some in South America. They also called it the 3 sisters. That's maize, beans, and squash. So the beans tends to give off nitrogen, which helps the maize. So you see, in this case, you don't need that NPK 1515 fertilizer for the soil. And then it also makes sure that the structure of the soil is maintained, because the nitrogen richness from the beans, and then the way the roots of the maize holds the soil together. So by the time you finish harvesting those plants, you still have the soil looking very loamy, very, very rich. But when we started using these government introduced fertilizers, if you noticed, that's when most of the soils that were once loamy or clay became sandy, and they keep getting worse. And also regarding the watering of plants that people refuse to do, and maintaining gardens, it's not on this video that we can address all that. We have to address it individually. That's what I personally do. Like when I come across horticulturists or maybe farmers, I try to go to places that where plants, vegetables, and things are sold. When I buy my own, then I talk to the people selling it and tell them, okay, do you know if you do this, this will happen, or this will improve? Or do you know that the government introduced seeds as seeds that grow once? That's actually what was done in the GMOs. They made them to genetically grow once so that you keep on buying more. So you also tell them the importance of preserving the organic seeds that their parents have been doing, keeping some for planting later. Even if they're going to collect the government seed on, they should make sure they still have the organic seed, because as you mentioned, one of the speakers mentioned earlier, it's actually going to be used as a form of war. That's a food war on Africa. That's why they are trying to control the food of Africa. That's what happened to Americans. If you remember, when they, after all the slavery, the lynching and everything, when they lost the Black Wall Street, they were given farmlands to farm on. And then later on, when these GMOs came into being, they gave them seeds. I have a link about that. There was one specific year, I'm trying to remember the year, but I can't remember. If I can remember, I'll mention it. Where these the Black Americans accepted these seeds, because they were not always like how they have been depicted on movies. The Black Americans really strived to come up, but the American government actually used them like an experiment on how to know how to deal with Africans, because they saw they were resilient. They're a resilient group of people. They know Africans are resilient. So they tend to experiment more on them to know how to address the bigger population. So after introducing the GMO seeds and the GMO seeds failed, then the white farmers bought up the lands from these Black Americans, and now the Black Americans are at the mercy of big organizations, and taking in the whatever food, that's why they are mainly into taking fast foods and stuff like that. That's why organic foods are more expensive. They lost their farmlands due to that trickery that the government did. So that's the same thing that also is happening in South Africa. If you notice, it's the white farmers that are controlling the farming business. And also similarly in Zimbabwe. So I remember there was one speaker from South Africa that came to warn the Nigerian government, but I know it is, if it's the Nigerian government, it's just a hopeless this thing. It's the individual people that can address it. Nigerian government is going to still introduce GMO. So it's up to us to know that we are not supposed to use it. It's up to us to know we're supposed to preserve our seeds. We're supposed to also talk to other farmers to do so. Because when you speak to one local farmer, you tell him, talk to other people. I'm telling you this so that you talk to other people. I have been doing this for some years now. I'm not a farmer. I'm actually a medical doctor, but I have my own garden. I'm really interested in farming and everything. I speak to farmers. I tell them your seeds, the way your parents were preserving it, keep preserving it because there will come a time when this government seeds, if you do not buy it, you will not eat because it grows once. And I told them to experiment on it, and they did. They actually did. I know the trickery of the West is that they have a lot of seed vaults. There's this famous one, it's Svalbard Seed Vault, that is in Norway. You can browse it up, SVALBARD, in Norway. They actually kept all our organic seeds there. And they are saying it's for a doomsday seed protection facility. No, it's not that. They want to control food so that they can choose what and what to do to a seed and who to produce, who to give a specific kind of seed. Okay, this seed that will produce several times, maybe we'll give our people, or this seed that will produce one, then we'll supply it to Africa. And you also mentioned something about Cuba. Cuba has been under several sanctions, yes. But as you can see, for decades they have been surviving. Why have they been alive, even though they have been on a chokehold? And you can see how they, even during the COVID, the so-called COVID pandemic that people are claiming was natural, but everybody knows that it was planned. It was Cuba that sent out their trained doctors to help so many communities, so many countries. So Cuba has been under sanctions for several decades. So imagine if they had accepted GMO seeds. Do you know what would have happened to them? They cannot even last a year. It's because they still have organic seeds. That's why they are still alive and they can still fight and continue pushing on against these world powers because they have their foods, the never ending growing seeds, which is what we grew up knowing. But now you plant one, like GMO tomatoes, if you buy a tomato, plant the seed, you see it will grow the plant, it will not fruit. They make sure they switch off the gene that makes it produce perpetually. That is the danger of GMOs. That's the danger. And then apart from that, there's a new GMO that is also coming out. You can also check on that. It has an insecticide within it. Imagine. So when an insect eats this GMO plant, it dies. What do you think will happen to you on a cellular level? What is it possible for you to say that something living dies from this plant, but you will be okay? Imagine that we are what we eat. We need to understand we are what we eat, and then we should also understand that whatever, if we're not eating, if we're eating things that are seedless, what do you think will happen to your own seeds? We replace practically everything within, who is that? Denamana. We replace practically everything in Azua da Allah. Sorry, please. We replace practically everything in our body. That's our tissue, our bones, our at different rates. So what you eat is what builds up your tissues. So whatever you eat is what will become of you. That's why they say you are what you eat. So if you are eating something that is sterile, what do you think will happen to you? That's something that they have been avoiding talking about. If you eat something sterile, you will be sterile. That is just the truth. Whether I want to, because everything organic, whatever mineral and element that we have in our body is what is in the plants, is what is in the soil. So whatever you put into your body is what is going to become of you. So we have to be very, very proactive about addressing these GMOs. It's not just here we're going to be discussing an 18 group 18 group, Mudassir, ina zuwa. 18 group discussion panel of this Zoom meeting. We have to make sure that we speak to local farmers and tell them, do this. Go and speak to your friend that farms close to you. This is the danger of these seeds. So they have been trying to get rid of organic seeds through clever, cunning means in Nigeria. But Nigerians, everybody, I'm very sure Africans know how toxic and how resilient Nigerians can be. So they cannot come out ho-ha and tell us we're going to take away the organic seeds. So they are cleverly bringing in and enticing us with this seed will bring out very gigantic maize. And, any farmer that is greedy will just go towards that, not knowing that he's poisoning himself and poisoning his people. So we have to get to the local farmer that are not really into that kind of greed and this thing, that they're looking into how we can maintain our feeding capability for our people before the knowledge of what they are planning for us becomes more widespread. Because as you can see, it's going to remain here if we do not physically, actively go out. We have to do this. We have to physically involve ourselves and speak to farmers at the grass level. We should not stay only here, please. That's what I'm trying. That's why I said, let me just speak, because this is how I've seen that a lot of people have learned about the trickery behind GMOs, and a lot of people are rejecting the GMO seeds, and a lot of them experimented and found out that really the GMO seeds are not the best. So you have to physically reach these people that do not have the opportunity to be on such groups and to also join Zoom meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our sister from the other side of Nigeria as well. And thank you for sharing a lot and many examples you've touched on, not only in the continent, in the Caribbean and all over. Thank you very much for that. Before I go to Sawindo, please allow me to go to Raspala from South Africa, and I'll come back to you, Sawindo. Raspala, I know you are a typical farmer.
Yes, son of the lake, yes. What do you want me to say, my brother?
We are talking about agriculture in the continent, both the GM, the ability of us to feed ourselves, the sovereignty, food sovereignty, and those other issues. You have an organization championing organic farming and organic agriculture, if I can remember.
Yes.
Do you think it is capable of feeding itself, or does it still import food from outside? Do they allow GM food? And what is the organization doing in regards to helping our organic farming as well? Please share with us.
Yeah, give thanks, son of the lake. Greetings, family, again, in the Southern Hemisphere. Yes. Okay, me, what I'm going to say shortly is that, obviously, yes, as the speakers graciously said here in this platform today, the GMOs are actually the killer of the Black people. Yes. So now, basically, it's like a research institute I'm trying to build. It's called Mountain Queen in Agriculture. Now, what we're doing here, basically, we're researching about the organic indigenous herbs, indigenous vegetation, indigenous fruits, in fact, indigenous plants of Africa, categorizing them, studying them, their nutritional values, you see, all the necessary minerals that are required by the African body to nourish itself. So far, we've got over 30 indigenous plants that we've researched, and we are able to extract from the mountains here in South Africa, free, obviously, it's Mother Nature. But now, again, with the issue to answer you, my man, we are having as Blacks, man. As I'm studying this thing, it's been 7 years now on this research, I'm beginning to find out, okay, no, the problem really, okay, yeah, the problem is the land, obviously, but it's not the main problem. But the main problem, now I'm finding out that it is the mind of the African person or the African woman or African man. Our minds still are based on consumerism. We still want to buy food from foreigners. You see, we don't yet have that mindset of making our own food using our backyards, what inheritance, cultural lands to plant food so that we can eat our own food. We're still not on that tip. And to prove that this thing is really deep, we even we even go to an extent to find work so you can get paid and buy food. so so my brother, the solution for me on my side would be obviously, as I even told the CSG class, you remember, that I have some land here in South Africa that we can use, yeah, for CSG, for ATP, whatever. We use these lands. We start planting because I have seeds. I have connections. The only thing that is needed is just this thing I'm telling you, the African mind to come together as we are here in CSG to put this now into practical use. Thank you, my brother.
Give thanks, Raspala General. Of course, thanks again for reminding me and for offering the land. Raspal has actually offered land for us to do organic agriculture in South Africa, and that's what he's doing actually. He's been preserving seeds. His organization has been championing African indigenous food. And I think, yeah, that's going on. So you confirm to us, Raspala, that also South Africa is not feeding herself. It's either importing or the farm is controlled
Yeah.
purely by the
Yes.
or the
Yes. Yes. Yes, my brother. Because remember, in South Africa, 87% of the land is owned by whites, and only 11% of the land is government-owned land. So it's the white people who's making the food for the blacks. Yes.
Thank you for confirming that, Raspala. Let me get to Sawindok in Namibia, then I'll get to Sister Agnes in Sudan, also to know what's going on there. Sawindok, back to you.
Yeah, thank you again. I waited a long now. I've forgotten all that I wanted to say. But the problem, like Raspala has said, is the mind. And the second problem is our leadership. Our leadership have got their priorities very wrong. Like at independence 1990 in Namibia, the emphasis was on science and technology, agriculture aside. And now it's like oil and gas. Nobody's talking about agriculture. So, and even by its own very nature, the Ministry of Agriculture is not really a senior ministry. First, you have got foreign affairs, and then the home affairs, and then you have finance, and then you have trade and industry, and then you have defense, and then you have fisheries, and then you have education, and then it only come agriculture. So our priorities are very much upside down. So unless we really have got the right people for the jobs, like our leaders really need to be shaken up, and only then. And mind you, at the Ministry of Agriculture, you don't have an agriculturalist. You have somebody just a friend of a president and is there as the Minister of Agriculture. At the Ministry of Health, you don't have a doctor there, you don't have a nurse there, you don't have a radiologist there. You have just somebody that is a friend to a girlfriend of a sister of a minister. So our priorities really, our CSG class really needs to speed up things and work things at a faster pace. Having said that, in Namibia, for instance, 90% of all our fish goes to Europe, and the fish that remains locally are so expensive that you cannot even dare thinking about it. And our cattle are also exported on hoof to South Africa and to other markets. And we can basically not produce our own food to sustain ourselves. Even maize we source from Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and all these type of things. So it's a question of priorities. And one more thing I wanted to ask is concerning how many African countries are self-sufficient as what food is concerned, and what can we learn from them? If we could maybe take that lesson, speak amongst ourselves, see who has done better, who is doing better, And as Africans, we have really invested very little in research and development, and that is what is also keeping us behind. So, having said that, hey, Africa, my Africa, our leaders, something, but I will not. I end it there.
Thank you, Sir Windhoek. Thank you for that. The conversation is the same. The story is the same. All along, from South Africa, Malawi, Namibia, Grenada, Kenya. And let's get what's going on in Sudan as well. Sister Agnes, please share with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, brothers and sisters, for the conversation. It's also the same in South Sudan and maybe worse. When we used to be a country together as Sudan and South Sudan, we used to have the Jazeera scheme. The Jazeera scheme was agricultural scheme which was irrigated, and somehow it was feeding us. And we also had a slogan like Nakul min manazra, nalbis min manasna, meaning we eat from what we grow and we dress from what we make. So somehow we were a bit better, but now when we became a country, the situation actually worsened. Most of our arable land has not yet been utilized for agriculture or anything of that kind. So the issue of GMO, we still don't have it because our local farmers or our subsistence farmers, they still have their other seeds. However, the yields are also low, as the case why the GMOs came in. I personally would not have an issue with GMO if it can still produce, like if they are genetically modified, and we can plant it and replant it and replant it like the way our ancestors, and we are still keeping the seeds, and then it gives a higher yield. That would have been good. But the kind of GMOs that we have now, it is really a killer, as it has already been said. And it is also another form of slavery, because if I cannot plant the seed, I cannot preserve, I cannot put some seed for next year, and all the time I must buy from somewhere, then I am a slave. And soon when that person will not give me, or that company, then I will not have food. So you see, the way we are going is not a good one. My call to action is that as African countries, we really have to see with our engineers, with our scientists, and see what we can do for our organic seeds, because some of them really don't yield well. I am also a farmer, I cultivate, but as of now, this is going to like the 5th year, I've not been having high yields. So I really wish for something better, like something which I can use small land, maybe 1 acre, but I really get high yields in that. However, I also don't want to be a slave, like I cannot use my seeds again. So we have already seen like what Burkina Faso is doing, the President Ibrahim and the team. I admire that one. They are really investing in agriculture, and in few years' time, we can see the results. For us, we are importing food not only from Africa, even from all over, from Europe, from Arab world, and so on, when they are actually a desert land, and yet they are giving us food. So this is a challenge for us. And from the discussion, I can see that there is no well-off African country which is already feeding itself. So it's actually a general challenge to the continent. So for us, we really need to invest in agriculture. We have arable land, we have the land is big, we can do a lot. And we have the water, we have the rivers, and we have also the rainwater, and we have the underground water as well. So as it has already been discussed, it's a mindset. It's a mindset, like someone has to feed me, or I have to work for someone so that I get money and I buy food. So when we work on this mindset and we invest in agriculture, I really like us to copy and see what Burkina Faso is doing. If we invest in agriculture, like most of us here in South Sudan, we are still using the traditional way of digging. Like we get people, they cultivate, manpower, but we are not using this, let me say, new modern agricultural technologies like the machines and the rest and the irrigation systems and all that. So that's also a challenge because we are not investing in that. Yeah. So otherwise on my side, I'm really trying, but also there is no help. Imagine I'm just trying from my own, but it's really a challenge. Otherwise, the way forward is agriculture. We can have our own seeds, we can work on them the way we want, and we make seeds which are still somehow organic, and at the same time is giving us high yields, and we can sell food to the rest of the continents. Why not? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Agnes. So Sudan is the same case. I'll be giving the hands that are up at least opportunity to speak. At least please take some 2 minutes maximum to speak so that I can allow also other members who haven't shared. We still want to hear from Uganda, from Ghana, from other parts of the continent. What's going on there in regards to our agricultural independence and liberalization or liberating our agriculture from depending on the West? In regards also, we want to hear whether the country is self-sufficient in terms of food, and whether we are practicing organic agriculture or what's going on, and these issues of GMO as well. What do you see about them? So let me start with Brother Victor,
Sorry,
and then I'll go to Elder
please,
Sam.
excuse me. I just wanted to address what Mrs. Agnes said. Hello, Agnes, how are you? Thank you for joining. You said you have a land like about 1 acre. There's something that I think the anchor of the program, you mentioned something about our ancestors being scientists. Yes, they were scientists. And what was the trick that was being used? A lot of technology has been buried. Let me tell you one of the ones that was buried. And anybody who is a farmer in this group, please try it and see. It's called electroculture. Electroculture is using copper wiring to make sure that no matter how little your land is, your yield, if you plant something and you use electroculture, if you plant something on 1 acre land, when you use electroculture, you'll be able to get a yield as if you planted it on 5 acres. It's using copper wiring as antennas that tap into what we call this etheric energy and makes, you see your tomatoes, the size of the tomatoes will end up being like 5 times bigger than how it's supposed to naturally be. So we don't really need GMOs. This technology is buried and hidden. Please, everybody should go and research on electroculture. No matter how small your land is, what you will yield can actually feed you. So if we're going to tell individual people, please tell them also about the electroculture. If we're going to be saying we want to become like Sierra Leone, we're just deceiving ourselves. Not all African leaders are going to be like Ibrahim Traore. We, the people, should solve our problem, and we should show the government we are not going to do what they want us to do. Then good people will start coming up. That is the trick. People are now waking up. Do you understand? And then there are a lot of stooges for the Western world in a lot of governments. That's why they are still alive. And that's why Ibrahim Traore's life has been attempted more than 20 times. These stooges are still there. Unless we are going to get rid of them, they are going to still be there. So you, the people, we are more than them. We are more than them. We are the ones who determine what we will, because we still have ancestral land, we still have farm. Let us use our little farms to feed ourselves. Like here in Nigeria, it's not as if that where we cannot feed Nigeria. We have been feeding Nigeria. You see northern Nigeria supplying tomatoes to the entire Nigeria. You see places where rice is grown supplying. We can feed ourselves and even feed beyond that, because Africa has 70% arable land in the world, but we're importing, because that's the deal that our leaders did with these Western countries, so that these Western countries will not be left without cash. We're giving them cash. We're actually the ones even helping them survive, but they do not want us to know. That is why you see in Zimbabwe is the whites controlling the land. You see in some parts of East Africa is the Chinese people controlling the land. You see in South Africa is the whites controlling the land. So once we are able to educate. Our government will not do it. We cannot continue saying until the government or good government. We should stop it, please. Let we the people solve our problem. When you solve problem from grassroots, the branch will be healthy, the leaf will be healthy. When you make sure that the root is good, whoever comes from the root and replaces these useless people, then electroculture. That's what I wrote. What you're writing is correct. Electroculture. Just read on it. It's hidden, but if you do it, you'll be shocked. It also heals the soil. The soil, sandy soil, will become loamy soil. And Miss Agnes, I'm very sure you know about one Asian technology of tapping water, how they turn deserts into green lands with this semi-lunar water tapping system that was done in deserts. I think it was done in, is it Namibia or Kalahari? Or just check semi-lunar pits tapping water. I can't remember what it is called, but it looks like a semi-lunar, like a semi-crescent, but just say semi-lunar pit tapping water. If we want to solve our problem, we cannot be saying until we get machines. Let us go back to the ancient times and use that technology that they use because it is friendlier to nature. It will heal the soil. We should not forget that these white people now are now talking about mud houses are friendlier and eco-friendly and better to live in than these brick square houses. What our ancestors have been doing that they were calling ancient and archaic is what they are now practicing. That's what they are even making top class hotels for people to live in somewhere in Mexico. There's this place that they built a very, very beautiful hotel, but it was with mud, semi-circular mud and everything, where rich people go to live. Because they found that when you live in those kind of houses, you even become healthier. So imagine that's what we were living in, that we ended up coming and carrying the recent form of building we too. And then also, we should not forget about the discovery of earthing, walking barefoot, how it can solve a lot of non-communicable diseases. Walking without shoes solves a lot of inflammatory conditions in the body. So a lot of things that we are thinking is archaic, ancient, is actually the best thing. That's the best. If you live in harmony with the world will always give you. Please, yes, grounding is called grounding. Earthing, grounding is the same thing. So we need to address it from the roots. All these things meet the farmers at the root level. We should stop saying until government will not change until we change. Let us help the people that their mentality is also poison, because a lot of our people, it's not their fault. They have been dumbed down. So many things are put in the food and in the water. So you have to start teaching people from basic level for them to understand the importance of this so that their children will have that knowledge and then they will be better off. A lot of people have been dumbed down. It's not their fault, please. So let us address the root level. Address root level will solve everything. Look into electoral culture. You'll be very surprised what a small piece of land will yield. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for the feedback.
Thank you very much, sister. Brother Victor, then Elder Sam. Elder Sam, it will take maybe 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much, comrade. Thank you so much, Miss Halima. I really heard that you really made a very important comment about the ground up approach to these our all agricultural issues. I also had a very comment that is almost related to what you said, but generally, I feel like agriculture is a component in Africa that is central to our true liberation. And when you say this, because of the 4 components of our economy, which means as we look at structural transformation of Africa, agriculture is the foundation. The service sector, which is completely now overtaken by the West and other people like the Chinese, the China, and then there is now the aspect also of industrialization, which is also dying. So we can be producing in agriculture, but at the end of it, if we cannot mechanize our tools to produce from our agricultural produce, we are still going to not really make it. And also, if we cannot adopt strategies to overcome, to have power in the global market in terms of our produce, we're still not going to make it. For example, in Kenya, I was reading a report that in Kenya, you get that they can boast of a billion export of coffee to other countries. But when it comes back to the international market, it comes over 200 billion. So it's got more of a market that is beyond, like is 99% bigger than what they take from Kenya. It means that Africa, we are subsistence and in terms of our work, and also our policies are made out of what we want. So the policy that are being created in Kenya, in Uganda, in Malawi, they are created out of people who have power, money. Yeah, people can come and talk money. So even if you have the knowledge, you have the passion, you have all these things that you want to get into, our leaders will not listen because we don't have the purchasing power to actually create a systematic approach to this. Yes, we are recommending so many good initiatives and approaches, but when they remain dispersed in our thoughts, they're not going to make any change. As much as we are going to systematize this operation, create a pathway that is able to bring financial framework, that is the only solution. But if you say, okay, let's do this, let's do that, you are not able to put a path that is practical, that is able to, because the government, our brothers, they are our mothers, they are our fathers, they are only there to represent our views, but they can fight our opinions, yes, but they cannot fight our systematic opinion, because our systematic approach to this journey is what is going to solve this problem. Agriculture is like the backbone of Africa, but over 40% of our economy still we are lagging. So my comment is that let's have a conversion that is driven to having a systematic approach to this. As we look at how to produce agriculture, in terms of we want to change the mindset of the people, yes, it's important. But awareness is key. Putting all these things is key. How are we going to have large scale? Because if Bill Gates come to Kenya today with a good amount of money, the president will definitely submit to any policy we'll create, no matter how or which formula you're going to talk this to work. So I feel like we have a responsibility not just to propose, and stop there, but to propose and go beyond and agree on our way to create a systematic approach. But the moment we stop at just throwing opinions, throwing ideas that are very good and very full of empathy to Africa, they will remain there because we are not taking a space of systematic approach. And systematic approach is not defined just by our knowledge, but by knowledge, by execution strategy, by the dominion of financial power that has to also be there. That we're able to, because our leaders, if you check the policy in Kenya today of agriculture, you can cry for coming generation, especially the youth who we are now. Yeah, you can cry because they are made out of you need how degrading they are to ourselves, how bad they are to our future, how bad they are to everything about us. And this is what we are crying about. We're not crying about the knowledge is there. The issue is systematic approach to all this knowledge we have. That is the issue. But the moment we keep bringing this to the point of leadership is also there, is part of the problem. But there's a problem because they are very much uninformed. And that's why we have to fight to stabilize our systematic approach. Africa is like food is already something we can cry. I cry inside my heart every day just to see what can we do, what can we do. But I know my little way of thinking, my little way of contributing will always get someone's little way of thinking, and to make this a move that can really, really make Africa stand on its own and make sure that it's able to service its industry, it's able to have power to dominate in the global market and within itself as a continent here, because we don't even trade with each other. Yeah, maize. I got a politician who knows that we have farmers in Kenya who have planted maize and is having a deal outside bringing maize to confuse our farmers here and not release their maize. So farmers can have the maize in their stores. They don't want to sell it because they are waiting for that period in which the sales are going to go high. So they are able to wait for seasons are just going because our politicians, they get in contact with other people all of a sudden and bring cheap maize. So there is a cheap maize here. There's a farmer who has invested in his farm, did everything, all that he has in, so he want to sell them, but he can't sell it because why? There's a politician who is making sure that the market has to not rest, that is able to maximize the profit of the uh, cheap exports from other countries. Like, for example, in Kenya, there was a very Russia issue that where we have this kind of maize brought, then they kill their local farm. So we have to design systematic policies that are driven from a nature that is strong to have all these things influencing. So I know this topic is deep, is long, but yeah, we can see our way through all these things. It's out of passion, cry, and all these things you have to do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Brother Victor. You're bringing the aspect of systematic approach, which I think is also very important to this. We are having 20 minutes to end our conversation. I'll request any member who want to contribute to please have your hand up so that I can go through the list and see how we can share the minutes so that each of one who is interested to contribute, please get a chance to contribute. I'll go to Elder Sam first from South Africa. Elder, you have a lot of knowledge and experience in it. And how
Evening, everybody. Yeah.
please share with us.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Please, Elder.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you,
Yeah.
Elder Sam.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to add because I think Rasfala and the guy from Namibia said a lot in relation to us here in South Africa. But I think it is important that people should be aware that South Africa is ranked 10th in the world in GMO programs. And we have about 2.7 some million hectares that is preserved every year for GMO production in South Africa. So organic agriculture is just relegated to almost non-existence. So that this is the crisis, because this is a country where 28 million people depend on social grants from the government. And it is disastrous to be saying agriculture is not a focus. So in a little scheme, some of us have even tried. You know, our townships where most of our African people are concentrated, they are buttressed by all these food what you call fast food shops where people, McDonald's, chicken licking, all those. And that is where our people's culture of not being producers is kept at that level. And that's why there's some people who have started here in the township to come with a program where people we try to tell people to say you need to go back to doing your garden patches in your houses. But remember now what this so-called development said to our people: you need to have paving in your yard right through. And now that even the little land in the backyards cannot no longer be used. But we have come with this program where we say people can use old tires, people can use old mealie bags in order to do agriculture, even where there is cement or paving in the yards. And this is still a little, but people are starting to realize that you can still do agriculture, practice agriculture in your backyard. And this can save, you know, in South Africa, there are people who kill themselves and kill their own children because of hunger. And this is a country where about 10 million tons of food goes to waste every year. And this is how tragic it is. That is why I agreed with the two brothers, Rasfala and the brother from Namibia, that our governments are our biggest failure. But as our sisters have said, we the people must now start taking our own situation in our own hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder, for that. Let's get to Sister Chisomo, then I'll go to Brother Dumisani.
Hello. Yes. I don't know. Do we have anybody from Uganda today? No,
Yeah,
we
we
do.
will maybe hear. We will hear from our sister from that side.
Yeah, because I heard Museveni challenging, saying Uganda has plenty of food. So we just want to hear on that one. Anyway, so for example, in Malawi, the new government had promised that they will start mega farms. So it wasn't clear whether they were the ones going to start the mega farms or they will allow people to start mega farms. So now the term is coming to an end. So they're now talking about mega farms, but they had put a restriction to say you can only be a mega farm if you own 20 hectares, not acres, hectares. So who is a local man who owns 20 hectares? Which means they were going to be they themselves who are going to own these 20 hectares, or people coming in from outside to get this land to farm. Meanwhile, they are taking our children, sending them to Israel to go and farm for other people instead of putting them in these mega farms to start farming for the country, or giving them loans and stuff like that to do the farming themselves for us. And also, and now it turns out all the mega farms that are in there are foreign owned. So again, we're going back to giving land to other people. We've seen Traore has decided all land belongs to the government, so they can own who is taking this land or not, and not allow other people from outside to take it. And before, when I was young, we used to learn agriculture in school. From year 1 to secondary, end of the Form 4, which is the last year in secondary school, you had agriculture as a subject, a compulsory subject. So we knew about all this, about when you grow maize, you put groundnuts together with beans and this and that. But now we no longer have that. So maybe we need to start advocating for agriculture to be in schools and all that. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to comment on. But I'd love to hear from Uganda, because Museveni does challenge that they have excess food from farming.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Chisomo. Brother Dumisani, then probably Sister Maira, if you'll be able to share something with us as well. Dumisani?
Thank you so much, and greetings to everybody in attendance. I must confess, it's the first time that I joined the group, but I've always seen the invites and never been part of it. My other life is usually doing a bit of some research. And when just listening to this, I looked at some of the things, because some of the times when we keep talking, maybe the disadvantages or something, we keep referring to government. And we know that government and politicians will have their own agendas. They will talk, these politicians, forever. But I looked at some of the disadvantages that were mentioned by some of the colleagues, particularly, that there's maybe broadly, just generalizing, that maybe it's a mindset problem. Maybe another one that one can look at is that maybe the other mindset that we have is that even when we talk agriculture, we are already fixated in having a very big, many hectare, instead of maybe just looking at 1 hectare, saying if you have a hectare, you can make it to produce almost close to 100 hectares, depending on how we model. Another disadvantage that we have, like I said, the one you started with, we keep pointing at government, and we know that it won't happen. There are no many Traores, there's one. The rest of the country, we don't have Traores. So that we must think about, and even know now that when we think politics, it won't happen. I was looking just at the disadvantages, which we just mentioned in the group. Let's look at the advantages that we have. We're all talking agriculture, meaning that we are talking the same thing. 1. 2, we are all Africans, meaning that we cover the whole continent better than the same government, which just look at one country. We have Namibia, we have Uganda, we have now, as we speak, we have all of us here. So we have covered the whole continent, but it's individuals We have an advantage because with this thing we are connected now, all of us. My solution is that if we work it alone there and there and there, it might not happen. And if we say, no, I'll start in my committee we must have a model. If there's a model that we use, and maybe we use it in South Africa or Ghana or South Sudan, one model that we say this is how we do with indigenous, and then we replicate it forever without thinking of government, we can get things going. My point is just to stop in terms of solution. One, the seed bank that other people have got the seed bank, why we should start. Everybody must have their own small seed banks, and then at some point we meet and we combine. We will start seed banks as well, and not say Monsanto is doing, no. With whatever that we have, we do. Like the gentleman in South Africa was talked about those indigenous. We must start storing them. Even if you have stored 30, you have done something, because at a later time, maybe you can share with everybody across the continent when everybody is now invaded by these GMOs. The other one, like the indigenous, the seed banks, and building a model for just 1 hectare as to how you get that hectare, getting the best out of it. There's a gentleman who's a professor in Benin who has a model where in his model of agriculture, he has blended the agric as in veggies. He has got the animals, chickens, and the water, so that he blends it so that that thing is self-sustaining. Such a model in one country, all of us, and then we replicate it 1,000 times, and it's not looking at any government. We don't care whether government comes in or don't come in, and then our people come. And when we say to people like they were saying, so here we are telling people, if you give people a model to say this is how it works, it will replicate 1,000 times, then we would have empowered people. Because right now, even if we talk, we encourage. When somebody is alone, doesn't know where to start. But if you have a model, it's a plug and play. Plug and play. You just plug it because the model is there. So that's what I'm saying, that my suggestion that we stop just talking in trips and traps. No, we are united now. We are talking together. We are in agriculture. A model. We have a model. And then that model will replicate it 1,000 times. Then we'd have empowered our people. That's my 2 cents suggesting in this, that let's have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Dumisani. You talk about the model. I think it's very important, either if there are models, we need to have something like an agricultural conference where we can compare models if they are available, or come up with a combined model, and we see how we work out on the issues to do with advocacy and implementation and sensitization as well, because every model needs a sensitization, it needs awareness creation, it needs advocacy. So I'll propose that then maybe we need to look towards something like an agricultural conference where we can then combine and look at these various models, then come up with a roadmap that we then can carry out as a policy document, try to advocate for it, try to implement it, try to practice, try to do sensitization. We can even do virtual sensitization with farmers in Kenya, farmers in Malawi, farmers in whatever. Because I think it's high time that we take this to education level. We need to educate our farmers. We need to educate our people. We need to sensitize them. We need to have forums where we can speak to them, tell them this is what's there and this is what can be done. These issues like what Sister Alima is proposing, this technology, like electro technology, is something that we need to share with more farmers. They need to be aware of this. These seed bank issues, this whatever. And I think Brother Rasfal I said that he has a seeds that he has stored. I don't know if your farm will be given out to be our seed bank as well, as it carries other projects that it can carry for us, the organic seed bank, that in case these guys decide to switch off what they want to switch off, we still have our seed bank that can sustain us. But there was a request to hear from Uganda, and probably my sister's dropped. She's from Uganda. I'm not seeing her in the chat as well. Anybody from Uganda probably will be able to share with us this. But I think we are moving towards some proper direction on how do we need to move forward from here. Everything starts from a conversation. But let me hear what Sawindo has to say. And Brother Kwame, if you are around, please, you will be coming in as we try to bring this to an end. Sawindo?
Yeah, just as the previous speaker has said, maybe we should create a platform right now where we will be sharing all these ideas and make preparations for the conference that you have just proposed. So maybe this platform as it is, it must continue as it is. Agricultural process. I mean,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Brother Kwame, please, I know I believe you are able now to speak.
Yes, Brother Pigeon, thank you for your elegant chairing of today's meeting. I'm very pleased to see so many of us on here, 16 of us. So it's really been excellent. For those who don't know me, I'm Christian Kwame Agbotsa. I'm the chair of CSG, and Brother Pigeon, who has been chairing, is the head of our administration, something like a permanent secretary. We also have coordinators here, some of whom have spoken. Thank you all for coming. Brother Pigeon, all I would ask is whether or not it's been kind of agreed we should have an agricultural group. Is that, because I read that in the chat, has that been agreed here, or it's a question?
Thank you, Brother Kwame. The idea is about either an agricultural conference or a group. But of course, for that conference to be done, we need to have a small group of that can coordinate that, Brother Kwame. So probably maybe it can start from a agricultural group that looks forward to coordinate this conference, so that you can then have an or Pan-African probably agricultural conference, where now whatever we can do a cross-examination. So I don't know, we might start with a group of those who want to help us get this. And I know there are many people from organizations like Citibank and other organizations, so that they come together to for the purpose of organizing such conference.
So has anyone volunteered to lead that for us?
Maybe those who are interested who can help us to coordinate these can also indicate in the chat, so that we can get in touch with you.
Okay.
Probably
okay. So anyone interested in helping lead agricultural front, please contact Brother Pigeon so we can set up an agricultural group. It's always about the work that needs to be done. The talking is important. Don't get us wrong. Talking is an important part of action. And it's important that people talk, discuss, share their feelings on issues. But at the same time, sorry about that. At the same time, the other part of what needs to be done, apart from the thinking and the talking, is the action. So thought and action must go together. We here are primarily a thought group, but the action part of our thought is getting us to meet like this and talking. This is our action. Starting and hosting Thursdays and Tuesdays Swahili, Thursday philosophy and ideology, and Saturday having an African-wide Pan-African grouping like this. So that is our action. But as you've all recognized, work needs to be done on all fronts, including agriculture and the importance of food security for Africa. Africa, in times past, fed the whole world. We fed everyone. Africa at the moment can produce enough food to feed the whole world, basically. So yeah, I'm sure you've discussed a lot. I wasn't here from the start, and you've discussed a lot. So to summarize, please, if you are interested in leading, being part of the agricultural leadership of CSG, please get in touch with our brother Pigeon so we can start something. I mentioned this because we started a Haiti one and not much came of it because people were not doing the work. So this will be an action-oriented group. So if you're interested in action, then contact Brother Pigeon. If you just want to talk, then it's preferable just stay with us here, because here is where we do the talking. But that group will be the action group. Brother Pigeon, I think that is it from me. The time is 2 minutes to 8.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Thank you very much, Sister Chisomo or Sister Agnes as well, who have indicated their interest in this. Basically, as what you are saying, and Brother Kwame has said, the group you are setting up is to lead to that action of a conference on agriculture. So all planning and everything else needed in regards to that, so that you can have that conference. I know Brother Kwame has been calling for constitutional conference as well, And out of our conversation last weekend, we are also looking forward to have another constitutional conference so that you have a continental constitutional framework from various groupings that are doing this. So this is actually a conference that will bring together various groups that are doing the same thing, decide on that what we call a system and everything else that is needed, and all running an implementation framework. So thank you very much for those who have offered to be part of it. And please, let's have that conversation. We are always open to host, even if it's conference, to help in coordinating whatever will be needed and facilitate anything else that can make it possible. We as a group are actually ready for that. So those who are interested, I've shared my contact in the chat list. Please get in touch so that we can have that conversation going. But I cannot end this event, though it's exactly on time, without giving Sister Ida even a minute. Sister Ida, please. I know you're one of the coordinator and you talk about this agriculture. Even a minute, Sister Ida. I know we are almost on top of the time. Sister.
Okay, well, I thank you all, and I love agriculture. Has always been something that is a real favorite of mine, because I just think growing things is a must, and that Africa needs to grow more. So I am very excited, and I keep hearing Brother Raspala telling us that he has this land, and it's like, how often has he got to tell us before we will acknowledge and understand that he's telling us he's serious? So I thank him for reminding us, and I hope that we will get something to do with agriculture going. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much, comrades, to those who've joined us before, Brother Carrington, who spoke before, and everyone who has actually shared their thinking, those who have also participated to listen in this conversation, and those who have also volunteered to come in and help us in that action-oriented framework, and everybody else who is still wishing and ready to educate us more, like Sister Alima. Thank you very much, and feel free to come anytime. That link is available every Saturday. We'll also be able to actually share some of these recordings that are always available on our YouTube channel, but you can also get in touch with me with the number I've shared so that you can be part of that group that can get notification every time, whether this recording is available, whether any action is needed. Just actually maintain the contact, get in touch so that you can be part of a grouping moving forward. I'd like to recognize you, Brother Koke, even though we can't give you time as well because of time, but thank you for coming. I know you're also farming thoughts that lead also to the farming of crops that can sustain the continent. So without much ado, me to end this at this particular moment. Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to engage with you more next week, and also welcoming you on Thursday, usual philosophy class and other initiatives we have. I'll also like to remind you once again that we have also a library, a Pan-African library that I'll be looking forward this week probably to look on more of agricultural works and writings that have been done by Pan-Africans or Africans from the continent about agriculture. Thank you very much, comrades, and have a lovely week.
Brother Pigeon, just before you go, so Sister Rose says she's interested, so make sure you get her contact, Rose Angel. Selwyn Hook also said he's interested, and Sister Chizomo has also count me in. So those three, I think, are willing to lead the action. So note those, please. Thank you. Oh, Brother Pigeon, what's our topic for next week, Saturday? Before you go.
I'll be able to share that. I'm having in my team.
Okay, no worries.
Sometime
that's okay. Thank you.
But I'll share it in advance as well once I get to the program list. Sister Rose, please get in touch with me with the number I've shared, either via WhatsApp, so that you can be able to move this moving forward. We want to start it immediately. Then you'll be free to see how we can move it forward. So thank you very much, comrades. Brother Kwame, I'll be able to share the schedule for next week probably other time later. But I want to thank everybody for their time, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irene.